Welcome, everybody. So nice to see you all from all over the country. It's pretty cool that we can do this.
And outside the country too.
Yeah. Yes.
Outside of the US.
Anna
Yeah.
Dunwoody, yes. And Molly Ness is here from Sugar Land, Texas.
Yay. Yeah, we have a note that Charlotte Meisner cannot do the video, but she's going to make contributions to the chat box. So we'll try to pay attention to that.
Okay, thank you, Charlotte. You have always got such good ideas, Charlotte. We appreciate you.
All right, welcome everyone. I'm Therese Honey. I live in Houston. I'm about a 30-minute drive from Mary Radspinner right now. And Mary and I probably see each other online more than we see each other in person, which is unfortunate. And Mary, we need to make a date. Okay.
We do.
So we're going to talk today about teaching adults. And Mary's going to give us
beg your pardon.
Discuss, yes? Oh, Mary's going to talk about an adult student she has, but I want to get something out of the way. First off, a lot of people who are just starting to teach, or maybe have taught a while, they sometimes need information about setting up their studio, or the business-wise. I always bring up the money first because I teach, and I know a lot of us teach for the love of it, but also we do make a living, and we need to take ourselves seriously as professionals. And we have talked about this a lot in previous meetings, and I believe, Mary, that those are, you can listen to those again. Is that right?
Oh, yes, they are all they're all at folkharp.com.
Good. There are in those previous meetings, we have had discussions of what are good books to use. I have a couple more to recommend today that I'll get to later. But you can go back there, and Keela Walton, we did 2 sessions with her, I believe, and she has a really great student policy handbook that you can look at and get ideas for that. Does anybody have any ideas about, any questions rather, about business? I do not see any questions about business.
Good.
Let me see.
Let's get to the teaching part.
Yes. Yes. Mary, would you like to talk about your student?
I would. I'm not going to spotlight myself. I have, what I'd like to do is just tell everybody about this particular adult student. She's 70 years old. And first of all, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So this student, and I don't want this particular student to be the focus of this, but I do want to run these things past you and then open it up for discussion. There is a community of harp players in North Houston that have been taught by someone who lives in Israel and has a Christian church in Israel. She starts all of her students off on harpsicles. This particular student started on a harpsicle, which was probably a mistake, not for everybody, but for her, because she spent her initial months of study trying to hold the harp up. And so her hand position is always like this because she just spent all this time trying to hold the harp up. These are a couple of the things that she does that I really need help with. After she plays, she will, for example, she'll do this. See what my hand is doing? She'll just twist her hand. Or she will play something, then she'll twist it and her fingers will move. It's very interesting what she does. She has a real hard time remembering. Let me have to make sure that I admit people. Sharon, if you could admit people, if I don't.
Okay.
She cannot remember from looking at the music. Between the music and the harp, she forgets. It's like she gets lost in space. So we got, this is, I felt badly. It took me a long time to realize this, but she got reader glasses and that helped a lot because it eliminated that bifocal thing, which was another physical step from making it to the music, from the music stand to the harp. But she still forgets, she can't remember even a simple 3-note passage between the music stand and the harp. So then we tried memorizing it and she still has a hard time with that. She can sight sing. She can sing by looking at the notes. She can sing la la, do, re, mi. She cannot translate that to the harp. Just can't translate to the harp. She gets her right and left hand mixed up. And let me just show you one other thing that she does. Oh, okay. When, for example, I tell her to move her, get her hand in position like this to go to the harp in this position, this is what she does. She sees that these 3 fingers are coming off, but she doesn't see that my whole hand is rotating. She does this. So if I could open this up to discussion, I would be really grateful to hear some of your opinions on what I can do to better teach this adult.
Mary, I have a thing. Demonstrate again what she does when she plucks the string. You had 2 different videos, 2 different demonstrations of that.
When she gets done, she starts to twist even before she plays the thumb, and she goes out this way, or she will end up correctly and then do that after.
Okay, all right. The first one I believe is from a weak thumb muscle. And so I would suggest putting fingers on the strings, 2 and 3 on the strings, don't remove them, and just pluck the thumb, and the thumb moves to the second knuckle. Now, you and
That's
I
a good
both,
idea.
yeah, you and I both are, come from a certain technique that we're taught to do that, and that may not work for everyone, but just to help strengthen the thumb muscle. Also, I have beginning students sometimes take a pen or a pencil and squeeze it and roll it and squeeze it to help try to build the muscle. Now, the other thing about the twisting the hand, I have various toys I use, and sometimes like this is a little stuffed animal and it's weighted, and so it's heavy, but also I have cute little erasers. You can buy these like at the dollar store. They have them at the Dollar Tree. If they fall, they're not going to hurt the harp thing. And so like Mr. Pickle goes there. Let me get Mr. Pickle on, right? Actually, this one's probably a better one. Mr. Pineapple. If you pluck and you've rotated your hand or move it around, the eraser is going to fall. And so you could like say I buy these at the Dollar Tree. I can send them home with a student, and they can be the teacher and teach themselves. Here, can you see what I'm doing?
Yeah,
Yep.
I can see.
Okay, so that's my idea about that. Hopefully I was giving people time to think about some more ideas.
Yeah, may I jump in here for a moment?
Yes.
All right, you mentioned that the student can sight sing. This is what
Yeah.
I think, and I'm approaching this from my nursing background. I think she has an auditory memory, but not a visual memory. I'm not talking about being auditory versus visual learner, auditory memory, because she can sight sing. I would approach learning the notation on the written page from her using her auditory memory. I would even have her sight sing, just take like one measure, have her sight sing the notes in one hand, then see if she can play them on the harp. She may be able to do it that way.
Thank you. Yeah, I knew that you would probably be able to distinguish auditory memory, visual memory. I would not have come up with that terminology. It's good to have terminology to put a label on what her problem might be. Yes.
I have a question. How frustrated is she about this?
She's not frustrated. She comes to me for therapy. I think she knows that she's got problems, and I'll tell you, you know how I deal with it in lessons. I laugh at her and I say, "You are so funny," and we just laugh. We get along quite well. And she will just, sometimes she'll just have tears in her eyes and say, I love you. Because I suspect that other people are not as patient with her. And
So then I have a suggestion that probably goes against everybody here. Maybe it's okay if she does that. So what? She's 70 years old. She's not going to play in the symphony. She's only playing for herself, and she's not frustrated. So if she goes like that when she plays, hey, let her go like that. It's an idea.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
I get what you're saying. There is another self-taught harpist in town who has criticized me to her, saying that your teacher is not teaching you
Oh,
correct hand position. Yeah,
well, teach her to say, I just can't do it right. So Mary is so wonderful. She just lets me do it the best way I can.
One of my pedagogy teachers was a violin teacher, and he said, I don't teach the violin, I teach the student. That is the reply I think that is best for that situation.
Yeah.
Who else has any other
Stephanie.
ideas for Mary?
Stephanie.
Yeah.
Oh, and
So as far as blaming the teacher, I know that perfectly well because I bought a really nice lever harp off a young man who was giving it up because playing the harp made his shoulder hurt. Well, he went to show me the harp and he put it on his right shoulder and had his right shoulder like this. And with the harp, I bought the harp, and with the harp, he gave me the book he'd been studying from, Sylvia's Teach Yourself. And his poor teacher had written shoulder down, relax shoulder, shoulder down, relax shoulder. That was a very good lesson for me, and never assume it's the teacher's fault if the student has terrible technique. And I've told that to my students all the time about, posture and everything. You've got to sit up straight, because if you do this or this, it'll hurt. But so that's about not blaming the teacher. But I'm with you guys about hand position, and I like to point out to my students, most of my students are adults, that everything's diagonal. So the thumb is diagonal to the strings, fingers diagonal down, thumb diagonal up, and the back of your hand also. A lot of harp books talk about your fingers and your thumbs, but they don't talk about this back of your hand. That's diagonal also. I say that's like a ski slope that you could ski down. And so I try to get people away from doing this, but a lot of my beginning students, they get to the thumb and go like that, just to get extra leverage. But I tell them, you'll never be able to go faster if you have to stop and do this every time you play your thumb. So
I suspect that Mary is discussing this sort of thing because Mary's a good teacher, but like what Sharon said, sometimes you have to let it go. But I always ask permission if I can touch a student or grab their hand. But Mary, that might be something where you hold her hand when she plays.
I've not done that yet. I have not tried that. I'll do that.
That was actually a suggestion that someone had written.
Yes.
Nell Morris had written in here, and maybe some other people might have mentioned that too in the chat.
Yeah.
Sharon, could you read what people are writing in the chat?
Okay, well, back up a little ways. Consider their time restraints. Harp lessons are not always at the top of the priority list for adult students. This is Charlotte Meisner saying that. I think she's in our, there. Yeah, we can't see her. Figure out a policy regarding missed lessons. That sounds like some business stuff. Hand twisting, hold her hand in position. And then Charlotte also says physically hold her hand and move her hand the way you want it to perform. Do some ear training routines, play some short patterns, 3 or 4, 5 notes, then identify whether they're going up or down. show hand levels of what she hears while listening and singing. I guess that's kind of this kind of thing. Um, tracing the contour in the air might be sufficient. Drawing on paper the melodic contour. And then Nell says, holding her hand to stop it from twisting. Adult students are taking harp lessons for enjoyment. Let them play things they enjoy, adapt repertoire to their preferences. Consider any physical limitations the student may have, back, neck, shoulder, wrist, hand issues. Adapt appropriate position to accommodate those issues. You know, Mary, maybe if you allowed her to do that, you could even say then, okay, let's do that. And now this time, let's not. Or let's go the other way. You know, so 2 this way and 1 this way.
Or let's do that and then let's undo that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I will try. I think I'm going to try that. I will hold her hand in place and also let her do that and ask her to undo that. Yeah, they're very good. Thank you, everyone. That's so helpful. Thank you. Nancy has a question. Can you see? I'm not seeing chat very well.
Yes, any suggestions about teaching rhythm? Yes, I believe I do have a suggestion.
Yes.
There are flashcards too, and that are rhythm flashcards, but also there's all sorts of phone apps. But you know, if you have a student who's over a certain age, you know, I'm over a certain age, and you know, phone things aren't always, technology isn't always as fun as it is for the youngs. But yeah, there's phone apps for rhythm and for theory. So, but this is one of the best ones. And there's this one gets pretty complex, but there's other simpler ones that are guided, pointed towards children. We have another, Mary Muckle has said, I had a hand twister as though she was turning a key in a lock. She also played piano. I showed piano hand position where fingers are easily accessed to the keys, then turn my hands into harp position. So the fingers were also easily accessed to the keys. This worked for my student. I said, Mary, I'm really thinking that you have to hold. Yeah, that you're going to have to. Oh, I know. I had a suggestion too about like I don't have good short-term memory, long-term memory, any type of memory. But have you considered just teaching the tune to her by ear?
Yes,
Or
we've tried that. It's
what about if you have your hand, you're reaching over behind her for her right hand, and you play the notes in front of her, and then she copies what you did in small niblets of notes.
I will try that too. That's very, very good. Thanks. Yeah.
I used to have a student that would come, and every time we would do the same thing because she never would learn it. It sounds similar to yours, you know, but she wanted to come, and she felt like that hour was one of her best hours of the week, that she could just come and be with somebody and do something. And she really didn't care that much about progressing. That probably makes it frustrating for you, but if you can get beyond that, then, you know, let her have her hour.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah.
One of the other things that it's one of those elephants in the room, but given her age, maybe she has a cognitive processing problem. Maybe she's beginning to get dementia. Dementia does not progress in a steady manner, depending on the type of dementia. Sometimes you lose certain abilities but retain others.
Yep.
My guess is she's probably sung in choruses a lot of her life if she's a good sight singer. Just my father was a barber shopper, and he retained the ability to improvise a bass barbershop part until pretty late in his dementia journey. So given that nobody likes to hear this, but it's a fact, the median age of dementia is only 62.
Wow.
Because there are a lot of people that have it in their 40s already. All right, so 70 is not too old for somebody to have some dementia, and they are not able to do certain things, but retain other things, especially those that they learned way in the past, such as choral singing and learning to sight read. Maybe she's done that all her life. I don't know, but just something to consider.
Thank you. That's good too. I hadn't thought of that. And that's a possibility with this person. Yeah.
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 We have a comment about maybe in the future having a workshop on working with adult students with special needs. It's a very good suggestion, and we'll work on that. We'll work on that in the future. Yeah. Mary, do you have anything else you want to talk about with your adult student?
Well, I have another student that she can't close her thumb like this. It closes down here, which I think that messes her hand position up. So I told her that instead of closing her thumb, don't close your thumb. Just let it stay here, because it's better to stay here, not stiff, but better to stay here than to end up down here so that your hand ends up really like this. Anyone else have any suggestions about her thumb is number one hyperextended, but it just doesn't move this way. It only moves this way.
I think your suggestion's perfect. Everybody's hands get stiffer with age. Many people get arthritis in their fingers, so they don't have that kind of control over their fingers that they did when they were younger. I think your suggestion's great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you.
Yeah.
Stephanie?
One book that I have from an Italian teacher, I might be able to find it. It was intended for very small students, but I think you can use analogies with adult students also. It said that your thumb is a toilet seat, and the toilet seat closes down onto the top of the toilet. It doesn't go inside, it doesn't fall inside, doesn't fall outside the toilet either. It just falls right on top.
Yeah, I tell students put the toilet seat, but then I was told in a teaching workshop that wasn't good. Instead, I say put the roof on the house. I was told that wasn't,
Appropriate.
yeah.
Oh.
We use a rubbish bin analogy. So that's the lid of your rubbish bin, and you don't want the flies to get in.
Yeah.
Oh.
Wastebasket, yeah.
So I have there's a comment here from Nell Morris. In Harp Olympics, the exercise where you put 4 fingers on adjacent strings and play 1 finger at a time while holding on with the other 3 strings, that will prevent the twisting away, like with the thumb. Yeah, there's an exercise like that in Grossi and also in the Salzedo method. That's a very good suggestion.
I think Betty Parrott too.
Okay.
I think so.
Charlotte Meisner says, I have encountered similar problems with one student in particular. Write down the verbal instructions you give at the lesson, thumbs pointing to the ceiling, fingers to the board. After completing a chord, close the fingers as though wrapping your fingers around an old-fashioned glass Coke bottle and covering the opening with your thumb. Plastic Coke bottles are not quite the right shape. Then she goes on, as a matter of fact, close fingers and thumb as above, even after playing a single note with just 1 finger. At this point, don't get into raising. Keep hands still as possible. Economy of motion. That's when I think that the eraser, keeping the hand still, can be good. And then another one, Mary Muckle says, what about putting a mark on the thumb where she would place it? I think that, yeah, these are, if I was teaching an absolute beginner, these things are all very, very important, very, very, very good. But you have someone that's been playing for a while and she's gotten into some habits. So, you have to choose your battles, about what, like Sharon Thormahlen said, just let her have fun. I think you can lecture about it till you're blue in the face. And if the person physically or mentally or emotionally can't get there, we can't all be perfect players. God, Lord knows I'm not.
One of the things that I use, and because I guess I'm the harp daughter of Laura Czar, she was my teacher, and this is what she taught me, was that if you have a butterfly in your hand, you don't want to squish it. and you don't want to let it go, but you want to close it up and give it as much room as you possibly can in there, which helps your fingers close here instead of here. So without the butterfly getting out. So you have to close the side door too. Anyway, it's just a visual thing.
Yes,
So
yeah,
if
I use
anybody
that
wants to
analogy
use
too.
that,
Yeah, I use
take
that
it.
to capture a butterfly.
Right,
Don't
but you don't want to capture it like that because you're
don't let
going to
it
kill it.
go
So
and
you
don't,
have to give
yeah,
it that room.
yeah,
Yeah.
don't let it go and don't squish it. Yeah,
Right, exactly.
yeah. Does anybody have any other specific issues with students that they want, adult students they want help with?
I would just mention, she's not taking with me currently, but I had an adult student come to me. She had I think a little 26-string harp, which was fine. It was a situation where this was a woman who really wanted to learn to play the harp, and she had a negative musical aptitude. I have never run into anyone like that at any age.
Oh, I have.
Yeah, I mean, it was unbelievable.
What does that
Um,
mean?
She had like zero sense of rhythm. She had all kinds of mental processing things. I'm guessing she was probably 50 when she was taken with me. Just being able to transfer what was on the page to the strings. I mean, just every aspect of musicianship just wasn't there. And I found out she had zero musical background, which may have been a lot of it. She never sang in a chorus. She never studied an instrument as a kid, nothing. So she was coming completely raw. Um, I thought that would make it easier because she didn't have any preconceived ideas, but it was very difficult. I think for her, her lessons were like therapy sessions with me, which is okay. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, if you want to come and pay me $50 an hour to be your therapist, all right, I'm okay with that. Um, but you could tell she was not frustrated, but disheartened because she really thought it would be easy to learn to play the lever harp, and it was insurmountable for her.
Yeah, I think as teachers, we all have our strengths and weaknesses. And I have known of some teachers that it's not my style personally, but they're very good at getting adult learners to have their hands on the harp and just have fun. And unfortunately, if you have one of those, well, what can happen is, you know, like somebody like Mary, you have somebody transfer into your studio that, you know, she's like, I don't know where to start because there's so much that's going wrong here. Yeah, I think, yeah, it's a challenge. Remember, you know, we don't teach the harp, we teach the students. I think that's something that we all have to remember. Yeah. We
You
have
know,
a couple.
that's
Go ahead, Sharon.
interesting. We do a lot of concerts at this place where, well, it doesn't matter where the place is, but I always invite people to come up and try the harp afterwards. And sometimes they just want to, you know, do whatever. And sometimes they want to learn something. And so could I just show you what we do? I know you guys all know this thing, but it's kind of a fun thing to show someone who's just beginning, that knows nothing. You're not reading notes, but I have them do this. I'll do it left-handed so you can see. I start them on A and C, and I tell them play the C string and move it down one. Play the A string, move it down one. Oops, I'm going to be in the wrong key. And so we're doing this, right? Whoops, B flat. And they usually, you know, if they don't get it the first time, but I say try it again, you'll do it better the next time. And then so we do that, then we do left hand, then we do them together, then they do harmony, and they're doing this all in, you know, 6 minutes or something of never having played the harp before. So I don't know, Darhon, maybe that's an idea of how to approach somebody who has never done anything, and, you know, just an idea.
That brings me to a subject that brings me to something that I want to talk about, having group lessons. That is a great way to have a sort of intro to the harp, a free workshop where you set a day and you have a minimum of people to make it kind of worth your time. Where you have a free workshop, you have to have enough harps to go around, and you do that type of thing to get people introduced. Now, who knows how many would actually sign up to have private lessons with you, but you could also, that could be the basis of a weekly or bi-weekly group harp class where you teach that sort of thing. And I think that kind of having that beginning harp workshop, a regularly occurring one, is really nice for the students because they bond together because they're all struggling with the same thing, and they realize, oh, I'm not I'm not a loser. I'm not, I can, she's having or he's having the same problem I'm having, or then they encourage each other too. They're very supportive. And so that can be a good thing to do, which then brings me to another subject I want to talk about. And we're talking about, several of us have mentioned that our students sometimes treat the harp lesson as a therapy session. Now, personally, therapists can make $350 an hour. I do not. And, but also I enjoy my relationship with my students, and I want to be supportive. And sometimes I've had them come in and talk about, their lousy day at work. But also I do take my responsibility as a harp teacher seriously. And I want to play harp with them. And so when I've had students that I know are regular talkers, and I'm a talker, don't get me wrong.
No.
Shut up, Mary, shut up. I know they're going to come in, and my harp, where I teach right in a room right next door to my front door. And when I'm teaching lessons, I leave my front door unlocked and my students just come and go because I don't want to have to get up and answer the door each time they're coming. That I know they're coming, and I'm sitting at the harp and I am practicing, I am playing. I might be just doing triad exercises or something like that. They come in, I say, sit down, let's do triads right now, or let's do scales right now, or let's play chimes, or let's play clog dance right now. And we start off playing. So at least we have played the harp, because it does make them feel better. Talking about our problems, yes, makes us feel better mostly. But we're playing the harp because it makes us feel better. We love the harp. And so that is part of the therapy. If they're doing it for fun, for enjoyment, for pleasure. So
I agree with that a lot, because I do have students that they would just love to talk. They just want to talk. And I don't feel good about that. So that's a great idea to just at least play something. Yeah.
Stephanie.
I have, as part of my lesson agreement, I tell the student, again, adult students, I tell them, if you've had a week that's so frazzled, you haven't even touched your harp, don't cancel your lesson, but come in and I'll play for you.
Oh, that's nice.
I take requests, and once they've been given permission, they don't do it every week, but they do the right thing every once in a while. They say, I've had such a week, I just want you to play for me, because it'll get them re-energized, it'll get them re-interested and re-inspired and relaxing. And so they feel like they've had a private harp concert, and it kind of gives them a boost. And I've go between maybe playing something I'm working on just to show them for interest, versus here's a song you might want to learn next, or here are a few different songs from the book we're working from that you haven't played yet. So you can go both ways.
I like the idea of playing tunes that are at their level or in the book that they haven't learned yet, because it does give them inspiration. Yes, I too, like you, Stephanie, play something that I'm working on, but that's just like, yeah, but something that's at their level, they're thinking, oh yeah, and I let them record that too, to help give them inspiration. I'm going to look at some of these
Nell
past
wants
comments.
to talk.
No, I just wanted to ask a question. If you have the student, and a lot of my adult students come in and want to talk initially, you know, we greet each other and they have a few things they want to say, but then they still want an hour of harp lesson. So it ends up being an hour and 15 minutes. So
Nope.
yeah, so
no,
it's hard.
Nope.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear.
Nope. You're not being paid $350 an hour for this.
You're absolutely right,
And, you know,
for sure.
I'm not trying to sound, please believe me, I'm not trying to be heartless, you know, and ruthless. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And actually, if you are teaching a lot of lessons, it is not an hour lesson. You have to get up and go to the bathroom or get a drink of water. It's really a 55-minute lesson or even a 50-minute lesson. I have that in my policy that it's, you know, like it's a 25-minute lesson or it's a 50-minute lesson. I go over and give them an hour or 30 minutes anytime, but that's my prerogative. But I have to be able to get up, you know, and go to the bathroom, you know, or whatever, eat a snack, you know. So
I don't ever book them back to back, so
Yeah.
I don't run into that. So, okay, I'll be a little more strict.
Well, you're a businesswoman. This is a business. I know that we teach because we love the harp, but you're a businesswoman. This is a business.
Yeah.
So some past comments, by the way, backtracking a little bit about the hand position, skip the pieces they already learned with the bad hand position and start new pieces. It's a perfect suggestion. Another one is, I found those therapeutic squeezy balls. I use egg-shaped ones to get the point across pretty well in a self-administered. That was good. Then another person, Charlotte, wrote, I think that musical aptitude is on a sliding scale. Everyone has some degree of aptitude, and musical performance is a learned behavior. Then Jane Hyde writes, Megan Matheny treated a group of 15 or so harpists of all ages and levels here last November. It was all improv, no music stands, and we all came away with a bounty of earworms that was truly inspiring to all of the adult novices and their teachers as well. Yes, Megan is very good at that. I've seen her do that with high school kids too. Yes, and Elaine Saney writes, bills need to be paid. Yes, that's right.
I wanted to address the comment that Charlotte wrote about, I think that musical aptitude is on a sliding scale. Everybody has some degree of aptitude. 99% of the time I agree with that, except this one student really threw me for a loop. But anyway, I can usually identify on the first lesson, if not the first, by the second, whether the student is a visual, auditory, or kinesthetic learner. And I try to find that out real fast so that I slant my teaching in that direction. I'm highly visual. One of my coworkers described me as a visual freak. If I hear music, I see a grand staff right in front of my mind, writing the notes. But I also have a good auditory memory, which is a different skill. So anyway, I try to identify in my students where their strength is. And that's why I mentioned with this student of Mary, if she can sight sing, I would capitalize on that. And I would use that as a way of teaching the written music to her.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. It's good.
You know, I'm a visual learner, but not the dots on the page. I'm a visual learner of the strings on the harp. And so, you know, for me, it's like my motto is play the strings on the harp, not the notes on the page. And I know that some people, I have some students that they're just locked into that page. But I really try to pull them away from that. You know, if I can get them to memorize 2 bars, or, you know, even just be able to go back and forth, because you have to look at your hands sometimes.
Yeah, harp is one of the few instruments you have to look at your hands when you play. Not all the time, but
Yeah,
it's
not
one of
all
few
the
instruments
time.
you have to look.
Yeah,
but-
you're doing a lot of peripheral, you're doing a lot of feeling when you're doing, you know, connected notes, but you're doing some jumping. Mary, you wanted to say something about that?
I had a strange experience one time. It was almost a spiritual experience, but I was thinking about how easy it is for me to read music. And I was playing the piano, and just for a short moment, and it was so weird, I felt like I was on the page.
Oh,
I like I was in the paper. It was, and it didn't last for very long, but I am so comfortable reading music that that's what happens to me. I almost felt like I was writing the music. But anyway, that was just, you can all think I'm weird. It's okay.
No, I can totally identify. At one time, about a year ago, I was practicing piano. I'm also a reasonably good pianist, and I do a lot of church work. And I'm playing away, and all of a sudden, I broke out sobbing, realizing what a gift it was to be able to read written notation as fluently as I do. And not everybody can do that. Some people
No.
are totally auditory learners. I get that. I think if we're good harpists, we rely on all three skills. We may not realize it, but your ear tells you if you hit a wrong note on the string and you correct. So we're using our auditory skills also, and then of course the kinesthetic on the strings. But I know that we all have a preferred learning style that tends to govern how we approach things. Like I mentioned, seeing the grand staff in front of my mind's eye when I hear music. Yeah, people like they just think that is like weird and freaky. But I have done that. I mean, I probably learned to read music when I was about second or third grade because I had a really good elementary school music program. So we learned notation early on. And I cannot remember when I couldn't read notation and had that grand staff thing in my brain. It's just how my brain works.
Yeah, I see geometric shapes when I'm learning things by ear. I see geometric shapes.
Yeah.
So we got some more comments. Set
Yeah.
timers for lessons. The kids appreciate it when that class alarm bell goes off. You will too. And then moral support is in a harp lesson is very valuable. Gail Barrington said that playing the harp should be the most enjoyable thing we do all day. Start the lesson with playing, as you have commented, then keep the ball rolling. Anyone else here read Suzanne Balderston's on teaching the harp and how she discussed the TAVI memory quartet? I do not know about that.
Suzanne Balderston?
Yeah, anyone here read Suzanne Balderston's on teaching the harp?
Well,
I read
apparently
it.
Jane Hyde has. Where's Jane? Jane, tell us
I
about
read
it.
I read it
years
a
There
long
you
ago.
time
are.
ago. I don't remember the tabby. Let me see if I have it.
Sure.
Jane, tell us.
Actually, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Yes.
I've never spoken on one of these. Okay.
Well, step up to the plate.
It actually came up in the adults lesson this morning because she's not a novice, okay? She likes these real florid John Thomas pieces, and she's been playing since she was 10. But we talked about the memory quartet, and she started taking notes, which is a good thing. And what Darhon, is that how you pronounce your name?
Yes.
Okay, Darhon. All right. When Darhon's talking about seeing the grand staff, she's got her foot into the intellectual memory. Okay. Tavi is tactile, audio, visual, intellectual. Okay. So right now, the student is probably on a scale from 1 to 10. She's probably about a 7. No, she's probably about a 9 on her auditory. Okay. The visual that we're working on with her is that we are trying to get her eyes, her focus to the strings rather than the music. And I told her, you're probably going to play this piece through 200 times before some of this stuff really starts to anchor itself. Okay. But we're trying to get you away as far as memorization to move your visuals to the strings, and it will support, well, the audio aspect of it, this is A, will support the visual development because the audio's been in there. She's terribly accurate. She plays these florid pieces from end to end very slowly, terribly accurate. makes for a long practice session, I'm sure. But she played the whole thing for me today. We won't worry about bringing it up to tempo for a while because there are some other factors involved. But as far as the tactile goes, the visual is going to enhance her tactile ability till she gets that muscle memory set in. Am I talking too much?
No,
No.
no, this is fascinating.
Would you say that the tactile, Darhon, do you think that's what you were talking about, kinesthetic? The tactile?
Yes,
Okay.
kinesthetic, tactile.
Yeah, yeah.
The touch.
Right. Shapes.
Right. And as far as the visual, getting her, knowing where to put her hands on the strings and when. I suppose if we get away from the student aspect of it, and you and I were talking about how we play the harp, maybe we get to a point where the visual actually becomes kind of a minimal aspect. Have you ever played a piece with your eyes closed? Oh gosh, I could go on and on about this, but I don't want to because this is your party. So
Well, you've shared with us very nicely. Thank you, Jane.
I'll find out. I'll try to find that book. I think I got it at a Harp Society conference in the 70s sometime.
Well,
She's been gone for a long time. I don't know if any of you remember her. She was a hoot.
Yeah.
Suzanne Balderston, yeah.
Yeah.
Stephanie?
As far as learning
Oh,
to
Kathy
read,
said you can get it.
I often teach my students specific things that I remember figuring out. Like I teach things that not necessarily someone taught me, but I figured it out. And in learning to read music myself, I remember noticing at some point, oh, I need to connect 4 things: what it looks like on the page, what it looks like on the harp, how it feels to my hands, and how it sounds, which is all I hadn't enumerated the intellectual in that, but that would be like analyzing the form of a piece and notice that this is the same as this phrase, etc. But I think in learning to read, that doesn't necessarily occur to students automatically. So shapes, Sharon was saying, I spent a lot of time on shapes, and in a previous meeting, I had shared with you, Mary, my interval flashcards, because I remember a lot of students come in thinking, they look at the page and there's a C, so they get a C ready. And they look at the page and there's a G, so they put a G under the C without noticing that the page has a C and a G on top. But anyway, I noticed that sometimes, there's a lot of these same shapes. So I need to learn, when I see that shape on the page, what it looks like on the harp and what it feels like to my hands. And feeling with your hand the difference between, say, a fifth and a sixth. When I have a student that's trying to play an exercise of fifths and she keeps getting a sixth by accident, I say, you're going to need 6. So right now, sit down and go fifth, sixth, fifth, sixth. Go back and forth between those 2 so you can feel both of them, so you can learn to feel. So learning to feel an interval, seeing a fifth on the page and knowing your hand to go like that. So what it looks like on the page with what it looks like on the harp, which you were saying, the visual, those are both visual, how it feels to your hand, so you can close your eyes and put your hand on a third or a fourth or a fifth, etc. And how it sounds, because a lot of people are so locked into looking at the C and getting the C ready and then have no idea how the piece sounds. I think a lot of students don't think to listen to themselves when they're practicing. So I keep emphasizing to my students, I always hum to myself when I'm learning, because if you can remember how it sounds, that helps you remember how to put your fingers. And when you put your fingers on a C, D, E, then look at the page. Does it go ascending? Directions. This is another with visual. Or is it descending? Because sometimes they'll put their fingers on a C, D, E, but the page says, and they're playing ascending. Notice directions. That's both feel and visual. And then putting it all together, then you can play.
I am a visual learner, and I do this in my own scores, but I also do this with my students to help them. I use on their scores, I use decorative tape. And so if a phrase occurs several times, we use one of the colors. Now, these are all very, very similar colors. I have many, many other colors of this tape. But I use it to mark it up and say if they're learning a simple Irish dance tune that is 16 measures long, it has two sections. Usually measure 8 and 16 are identical.
Mm-hmm.
And measure 1 and 5 are
Mhm.
identical. And measure 1, 5, and 12, 13 are identical. And so like we've had times when like we color code this and really they're only learning eight measures total. They just have to learn it in the proper sequence. And maybe they have to unfortunately change the fingering a little bit.
Well, and
but you have-
sometimes it's the same fingering and the same shapes and the same distances from all the notes, but on a different chord. So it's
Yes,
similar,
yes,
but different.
yes, yes, absolutely true, absolutely true, absolutely true. And that helps a lot. So we are, we're running out of time. Let's see, somebody has said that the Susan Balderston is available through Vanderbilt. I have another book that I think Mary carries.
Yeah.
This is a lot about basics, not basics, but good information about teaching lever harp. But of course, it functions well for pedal harp as well.
And that's by Joyce Rice, and she is so clever and so brilliant. Joyce Rice is. I have such respect for her.
I do too.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah,
It's an
her
old book, but it's good.
yeah, her Petty Larceny's books. I
Yes,
love
great.
those. I
Yeah.
love those. Another practical thing is at the first lesson, I tell them to bring a little journal because I need to write in it so that I remember. I do joke with my students the moment they walk out the door, my mind is wiped clean. And so that I can write down stuff, but also so that they can use it to track their own progress. But there are little books like this. I bought this a long time ago. And this is another one that I bought a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that it helps them mark things down in there. I'm pretty structured with my lessons. We always start with this. We always do this and do this. Yeah, I'm pretty structured about it, and that helps. But they don't have to buy one of these things. They can just use a spiral notebook. I don't care. But also I have rubber stamps that have like a grid on it that I want them to use to write their metronome markings as they progress, or whatever, to set goals like that for helping them see how they've gone with their practicing. Gosh, there's so much. We could just keep talking about all this. There's so much we could talk about teaching adults in particular.
I like I think it was Charlotte, you mentioned no raising, economy of motion. I think that is so important for adults. And I don't know about you guys, but if an adult is playing a note and then they're raising and then they have to get back to the harp, I mean, they've got this far to go. Let's give them a break. They're starting a new instrument. Just let them stay close to the harp. That's what I feel.
Don't try to teach everything everywhere all at once. That doesn't work for any type of student. Yeah. Any other comments? What is the I in TAVI for?
Intellect.
Yes, intellect.
Oh, that would be helpful. Speaking personally.
Well, I identify because I'm very cerebral, very scholarly. I approach everything first intellectually, and then everything else comes later. So I can understand that.
Yeah, I think it's I agree, Darhon. I can be that way too. And that's another thing about teaching is I do try to teach music theory, and here's a music theory workbook. There's all sorts. This is not harp specific, but there are like 4 volumes of Kathy Bundock Moore's music theory. I've heard it said that music theory is the grammar of music. And if you understand what a C triad is, you know what a C triad is, or root position, first inversion, second inversion, you look at your score and you say, oh, that's a first inversion C chord. Now you don't have to, figure it out so hard, so it's not as difficult to approach. So I think that it helps with memorization and sight reading and blah, 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 blah. All right. Mary, do you have anything final you want to wrap up with?
Oh, no, I organize these things for me. And this one was just great. Thank you, everybody.
And please, everybody, if you
Stephanie?
we have one, one person has written an idea.
Stephanie.
I'm sorry, was somebody going to say something that
I
interrupted?
think Stephanie wanted to say
Um,
something.
Adult students, more so than children students, are so self-conscious about feeling they're doing it badly or feel ashamed that they're not getting it quicker. And I tell them, you get unlimited do-overs. So if a student plays something and they feel like, oh, that was terrible, or I'm terrible, I say, no, you get to do it over again. You get unlimited do-overs. And I keep emphasizing this so they don't feel like there's a deadline there. And I also naturally tell them, we're not looking for perfection. We're looking for progress, a little bit of progress at a time. That's all.
Yes. And one of the differences between adult learners and childhood learners is children, everything they're doing every day is learning something new. Everything is new. And we're, as adults, our brains aren't as plastic. We don't learn things the way children do. But the adults in lessons that are very self-conscious about, they feel like they're not making progress, or they're embarrassed about making mistakes, or feel like they're failing. And this is when we do actually get into therapy, is I try to tell them, oh, no. As an adult, you have the ability to analyze where the problem is and focus in on that problem. Children usually don't do that. They don't. There are exceptions to it. I'm not trying to diss children, but the adult has usually the ability to focus in. Now, there are adults that don't do that, but you look at the problem. There's more of a consequence for failure for adults than there is for children.
Right.
The consequence of failure for adults, the child gets a D on a test, or mom yells at them, or there can be worse consequences. But the adult, you lose your job, you get in a car wreck, something bad happens to your child, blah, 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 blah. And that's why why we as adults get very emotional about this sort of thing. And I think that is one area as teachers, we do have to work on emotional issues. So before we wrap up, guys, please let Mary know what other subjects you would like us to cover over the next year, because we really enjoy these meetings. And please don't ever feel shy about wanting to talk. Some of us, we don't want just one or two of us to be dominating the conversations. It might be all about me, but we value all of our input. So please let Mary know, if you have ideas for other meetings. Anything else, Mary?
I think that's it. Yeah, do let me know. And I guess I'll just, we've got 1 minute left. No, we're right on time. This is perfect. This is perfect. So I'm going to let you all go.